I want to go ahead and thank Dr. Drazen and Dr. Johnson. As a human factors professional, it's always nice to be invited to come and speak at conferences where folks may not be as familiar with human factors. It's a nice opportunity to do what I call preaching the gospel of human factors. So Dr. Cohen did a great job introducing what human factors is, talking a little bit about what a work system is, and also describing how flow disruptions can let us know about different threats to system safety. And so I'm going to build mostly on that, focusing on defining specifically some of the elements of the spinal surgery work system, demonstrating the impact of new technologies on various levels outside of just the OR, and then discussing the role of human factors in supporting technology integration. And so this is an image you'll see a couple times. You saw it twice in Dr. Cohen's presentation. You'll see it again in mine. But the work system is basically how humans and machines interact using information, technology, resources to perform specific tasks that allow us to produce products or services. And so when we're looking at the individual, we can be talking about their knowledge, skills, and abilities. With the technology, we're talking about the design, we're talking about the implementation, and we're also talking about the maintenance. And then with the task, we might be thinking about the complexity, the distribution of the workload, as well as the role allocation. And all of that occurs within a specific context, both the internal and external environment, as well as the organizational environment. And so when we're thinking about the spinal surgery work system or the surgical work system in general, those systems are defined or marked specifically by communication and coordination of tasks across organizational boundaries. And these tasks might be mediated by shared technology, or they might be hindered by technologies that don't communicate between the OR and other areas, for example, pathology or radiology. The spinal surgery work system and the surgical work system in general are also marked by organizational or departmental production pressures. The OR and elective procedures are often one of the main areas of revenue generation for the hospitals. And then the spinal work system is also marked by the use of advanced surgical technology, as we're seeing at the conference today. And so I don't expect you to really be able to read that image, but what it shows is that there are different microsystems that make up this larger work system. And so we're talking about sterile processing, we're talking about registration, the OR, of course, and preoperative and postoperative recovery. Or postoperative recovery, not preoperative recovery. And so when we're looking at technology integration in healthcare, what we have to understand is that technology is likely going to impact different levels of the work system. And I'll get into that in more detail in the next two slides. But that technology, while it might eliminate certain risk and make the procedure safer or improve long-term patient outcomes, it's also going to introduce new risk and failure modes. And so the benefits of the technology may also not be realized due to poor design, poor interface with other technology, poor implementation, as well as inadequate maintenance. And so what are some of these multi-level impacts? So Dr. Cohen spoke specifically about some of the impacts in the OR, where the technology doesn't just change how the task is being performed, but it's also going to impact the individual KSAs of that surgeon who's using the technology. But it's also going to impact the coordination and the teamwork. And so you'll see that through flow disruptions, like Dr. Cohen mentioned. And so it's not just, you can't just train the surgeon and then not expect that the other individuals on the team are going to understand how to work with the new technology as well. And we see this in robotic surgery. And then internally and organizationally, that might impact also scheduling, the turnover times of the OR, the configuration, design, and layout of the OR. And so the new technology is also going to impact other areas in the organization. For example, biomedical and sterile processing, which is actually where I've done most of my research the past year, and then maybe even central supply. And so depending on, for example, if you purchase a maintenance contract for that for the new technology, or you don't, you might have to hire and train your biomedical staff. They might have to develop some type of preventative maintenance schedule for that technology. For the folks in sterile processing, they might have to build new instrument trays. They might have to purchase additional reprocessing equipment and supplies, and they might have to go through additional training as well. And so I can tell you from my research that ortho and neuro were the areas that had the highest level of tray defects in sterile processing. So, missing instruments, broken instruments, bioburden were 8 to 10%. So almost 1 in every 10 cases in ortho and neuro had some type of tray defect. And so that means it's important, if you're going to need reprocessing, to also think about how that new technology might need to be reprocessed. And so some of the new risk and failure modes that might be introduced, specifically when we're talking about technology, is you're going to have different malfunctions, you're going to have damaged or missing parts. Sometimes, 1 or 2 instruments might not be sterilized in the time that you need them, docking issues, power outages, battery issues. Some of these issues can be anticipated using processes such as failure modes and effects analysis, HAZOPs, and fault tree analysis. But then there are other issues that are not really going to be, that you can't anticipate, just with those type of tools. So this might be related to reduced mobility in the operating room, different communication barriers, or even things like this where, the surgeon took off their shoes. Is that a result of the machine or just a way to be more comfortable? But you're going to have a range of unanticipated hazards that you might have to figure out through simulation, or you might figure out actually when it's implemented. And so there are a couple of ironies that come with implementing technology. And so I think the 3 that I'm going to focus on is one, that we have this idea or this expectation that the technology is going to reduce the workload, but the truth of the matter, in some cases, it's going to create new cognitive demands, sometimes at the most inopportune time. And then we have this idea that different technologies are going to operate autonomously. We see this more in autonomous vehicles, where there's this idea that the car is going to operate autonomously and the driver no longer has a role. But we know that the driver needs to maintain situational awareness, and they have to stay in the loop in case something goes wrong so that they can take control of the vehicle. But the vehicle itself does not support the driver staying in the loop, and that's part of the issue with automation. And then lastly, there's this general idea that the technology is going to reduce human error, and it might reduce certain type of errors, and it might reduce certain type of risks, but it's also going to create new types of failures and opportunities for breakdown in the human-computer interaction. And so in saying that, that's not to suggest that technology is bad, or that we need to go back to practicing surgery the way we did 50 or even 20 years ago. But the point is that to be able to integrate this technology in a way that reduces system threats. We have to be more considerate in terms of our integration, and that's one of the big roles of human factors. And so Tara mentioned systems analysis, and I would say this is one, in the clinical setting, this is probably the area where human factors are used the most, is really this idea of observing and interviewing individuals who work in the OR to move from this area of what we call work as imagined to work as done, where we're seeing that everything is not as clean and neat and tidy and theoretical as we might imagine. That the OR is going to have cords, can have cords all over the place. It might not be configured in a way that's ideal for the technology, and that the individuals in the OR are working with competing demands around safety and cost and throughput. And then the other opportunities for human factors that we're starting to get into a little more has to do with procurement. And so I'll give you an example. If you were to look at these 2 phone options, The features are similar, the functionality seems similar, but phone 2 has a longer battery life and it's much cheaper. So just based on that, you might say phone 2 is the better option, right? But let's say phone 2 is the Windows phone. Do anybody still remember the Windows phone? It kind of came and left without a hitch. And then phone 1 is the iPhone. Or better yet, it's an Android, since we're talking superior technology, right? And so, now that we know what those phones are, it would be obvious that we would choose the Android or the iPhone over the Windows phone, because now we're not just thinking about functionality, we're also thinking about usability. And so that's an important thing to consider when you're looking at the technology you're going to purchase and integrate into your environment. That just having a lot of features is not useful if that product is difficult to use. And then another area of procurement is that I touched a little bit on earlier, is that it's beneficial to engage your team. And this includes sterile processing, biomedical, central supply. And this is not to say that these individuals necessarily need a vote in the technology you purchase, but that their work using the technology or reprocessing the technology or purchasing equipment for the technology or repairing the technology is also going to be impacted, and that in turn is going to impact your work. And so you want them to be engaged with the process. You want them to give you some input on whether that technology is going to be very easy or very difficult to reprocess and how that's going to affect your ability to schedule the OR. You want your central supply to tell you whether or not it's easy or difficult to get those parts and whether or not that supply chain is resilient. Because as we've seen when Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, a lot of hospitals had difficulty getting certain supplies because that supply chain wasn't resilient. And so it's important to just have that input from your team, because they're going to be impacted by the technology you choose, and that in turn is also going to impact OR efficiency and safety. And so when you implement the technology, you're going to have, it's going to be used by surgeons for, whatever task it's going to be used, and then it's going to be assessed. And so, and that could be done, for example, through flow disruptions. You might get feedback from your sterile processing department about, different reprocessing issues that came up. You might get feedback from your biomedical team. And then hopefully that implementation wasn't so disastrous that you had to discontinue using that technology, but then, maybe you refined it or you did some additional customizations that allowed you to also then assess longer term outcomes around some of the things that are more important, such as, the patient and some of the organizational goals. And then you'll continue to use the technology if it supports your patient outcomes, your staff outcomes, and your organizational outcomes. And so just a quick recap in terms of how you think about technology integration. One of the things I would recommend is that you continue to provide input into the design and testing processes. The best technology is going to be the technology that engages the users early and often in the process. Secondly, you want to evaluate usability in addition to functionality. Having all these functions aren't going to be super important if the product isn't usable. And then, involve other team members to get their input. You want to consider, and I didn't go over this too much, but you want to consider some of these mediating and moderating factors that are going to impact your implementation. And then identify threats to system safety and design intervention. And you can identify those threats, for example, using the flow disruptions. And so once you identify those threats, depending on the level, you might design training for the individual, you might design team training, you might reconfigure the OR, you might revise your policies, you might need additional customization for your technology, or you might need to redesign the process. And that's all. Thanks.